So if your practice is stuck around $20,000 to $30,000 a month, most people think they just need more marketing. They need to get more new patients. They need to figure out another marketing channel, Google, Instagram, Facebook, Meta, whatever the case may be. But the reality is you can't do everything yourself anymore. And this is a very hard concept for chiropractors specifically to understand. About a month ago, someone asked me specifically when I started the hiring process at my practice, Strive to Move, in 2018, which was too late then, but in retrospect, they said, "I'm not ready to hire another associate. How did you know, Justin, when you were ready? Did you have to wait until your schedule was full?" And that is the biggest false belief in business. And so for you out there right now, if you're like, "I'm just waiting, I'm only 70% full, and I'm gonna wait till I have a wait list to hire my first associate or my first admin or my first person in my business," I can tell you that is the absolutely wrong way to do it. Because by the time you get to that point, it's already too late. And for many of you who are waiting until that happens, you're gonna be waiting a really long time. I hired my first doctor, my first associate, Dr. Ashton Villamoria. I was 50% full. Now you might be wondering how you do that. Well, at the time, my overhead was low, my prices were correct, I had some systems in place. And so the prerequisite to hire is not when you're ready. God, no, it's not when you're ready. The prerequisite to hire is not when your schedule as the business owner is full. The prerequisite to hire is yesterday. If you wait until you feel ready, or even when you think you have the money, or when your schedule is full, you're going to keep waiting. And how do I know? Because again, the mentors that you had a long time ago, the people that you thought were your mentors who are now tired, who are injured, those are the ones who waited for that same time. And so the best time to hire is yesterday. You will not feel ready. You probably won't have all of the money to do it. But we have to be able to, at some point, take that risk and take that leap, because anything good in life, you know, is going to be uncomfortable in the moment. If you're out there and you're like, "Yeah, but Justin, it's easy for you to say, maybe you had the money or you had the systems," don't think for a second that every time I hire someone to this day, there isn't a level of fear. Specifically, I remember back to my first hire when Ashton moved here with him. It was his fiance at the time and 2 dogs, and he moved here from Florida. And if you don't think that there's a lot of pressure coming into, he's picking up his whole life and moving to New Jersey of what if this fails, it's a scary proposition. And there's a lot of risk and pressure that goes along with it when there's that, like, I have to help make it work. The one reframe that I wish I had had at that point was that I do need to make it work. It's my fault that I'm the business owner. However, there's another party involved, him, the person that you bring on. It is their responsibility just as much as yours. This is a partnership. When you hire an employee, it is a partnership. It is just as important that they pull their weight as you pull your weight. And so, yes, while you as the business owner, I understand it's scary and I understand there feels like there's a ton of pressure, and there is, that person has to pull their weight as well. There's no guarantees in life. There is no guarantees in life. And so everyone is taking a risk, but again, all great things start with taking a little bit of risk on the front end. But you're not going to feel ready, and you will feel scared, but you have to make sure that you're going to do it anyway. When I first decided to grow my practice, I think we were making $20,000 to $25,000 a month. I had a part-time admin, Lauren. She was working 10 to 15 hours a week, and that wasn't that big of a lift for me. But I was with one of my mentors, and I had big ambitions to grow my practice, and I was going to do it slowly. And of course I needed more new patients to do that. And I needed to do all of these things first. And he looks at me, he said, "Listen, you grow the people grow the business." And so he's like, "You need to hire like now." And I said, "Okay, like who do I hire?" So it was me and just an admin. I was the chiro, I was the marketer, I was the whatever, everything. And he's like, "Well, you need another chiro to be able to replace you so that you can go build the business, and you're going to need a marketing assistant." And then he said to me, "Here's what typically happens. It is usually way easier to find a marketing assistant than it is to find another chiropractor. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to leave this meeting," which we were in a mastermind at the time. He said, "You're going to go home and you're going to put ads out for both. You're going to put an ad out for a chiropractor. You're going to put an ad out for a marketing assistant." This was January of about 2019, I think, at the time. And he said, you're going to put out ads for both because here's what's going to happen. You're going to get a marketing assistant quickly, and then they can go and do the marketing so that when you can find a chiro later on, because there's less of them, when you find the chiro, you'll have leads, you'll have marketing, you'll have things in the funnel because that'll take a couple months to get going. And then it'll be good because you can take on the marketing assistant first, and then you can take the chiro on later. That sounds reasonable. So I went home and I did exactly what he said. I put 2 ads out. Well, the best news and the worst news was that I got 2 people, Hannah, who's still here today, and Ashton, who is still here today, which is great now looking back in 2026. But the problem was at that point in that moment in 2019, they both started within 2 weeks of one another, which meant that my payroll, I hired them both full time, my payroll for a $25,000 business went from me and a part-time admin to me, a part-time admin, a full-time marketing assistant, and a full-time chiro. And so I added like $8,000 to $12,000 of payroll per month overnight with a business that was only doing $17,000 to $24,000 a month. Whew, it was a lot. But it all happened at the same time, and it was like one of those things where how bad do I want this? And I wanted it really bad. What I will say is a line that I've learned, I don't know if it's Myron Golden who said it first, but he says that, someone says that disruption follows intention 100% of the time. Disruption follows intention 100% of the time. So I had intention to grow this business, and my intention was to grow it methodically and responsibly and slowly, and I hire the marketing assistant, and then for 3 months, and then when that gets going, then I'll hire the chiro, and it'll be good because I can sort of waterfall myself into it. Well, disruption follows intention 100% of the time. The intention to grow all of a sudden was disrupted by the fact that I had 2 people that I had to bring on. And so I did it. And it was scary and it was painful, and I didn't know if I was going to make payroll, and it was like touch and go every week, every 2 weeks, every 4 weeks. It was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. And that was scary for a really long time. But today, all of these years later, like I always say, Justin, we're recording this in 2026. Justin can thank just that guy, Justin of 2019, that was willing to go through that and was willing to have the sleepless nights during that time. He really didn't have any money. He was living in a 2-bedroom apartment, and he sacrificed a lot, and he didn't have the big office, and he didn't really have the right price structure or the right marketing, but what he did have was the vision, and he did have the courage. The courage is having fear and doing it anyway. The courage is peeing down your leg and still taking action. And I did that. And so what we have today in this business, multi-million dollars, and a really beautiful life and a beautiful team of those 2 people, individuals who are still here with me, happened not because of what we did today, but happened because of then. And so when I'm looking at you, if I'm talking to you right now and I'm speaking something into your life, it's that don't think that myself or anyone else out there that won't have fear, and don't think that I had investors that were paying for this, and don't think that there was other money coming in, because there wasn't. But if you think about the people that you look up to in your life, maybe it's me, but hopefully there's a 1,000 other ones. I can guarantee you that there was a moment where they were scared out of their mind and they took action anyway. And hiring is one of those things. Now, the other thing that I will say with the fear with hiring is that we just talked about the money side, and that's objective, and that's like one thing to talk about. But there's another side of this, which is the personal side, and it's the leadership side, and it's the emotional side. And I think for most people deep down, it's even scarier than the money, because many of us out there, when we bring people onto our team, there's a fear of us being exposed. That we might think we have a really good business, and we might see ourselves as a leader, and we went to school and became this doctor. But at a deeper level, a lot of us really are concerned. We're scared that we're going to have to lead people forward, and we don't really know how. And that we're going to bring people in, and we might be exposed to something that we might not think we are. Again, all I'm telling you is this is normal. This is really normal. And for many of you guys out there listening to me, or girls listening to me, I just want you to know that it's good to feel that way, and it is a normal thing to feel that way. The first question I get when people are looking at hiring is a very basic one, a very innocent one, and it is, where do I start? And so what I want to give you now is a framework that I think about with any hire for you that you can use in your business today, whether you've hired one person or maybe you haven't hired the right people, of how to go about doing it. And so for me, where do I start? Well, step one is we have to write a job ad. The thing about your job ad that you should think about is it's very much a marketing exercise. So if you think about, most people say I need to market for new patients, you also need to market for team members. And so if you were to write an ad for a new patient, that's a specific type of ad where you might write a headline and you have a copy of the ad and you have a call to action at the bottom, come in for my office, come in for my special, whatever, right? And a job ad is the same thing. And so what I often think about is I want to write a really strong headline calling out a certain type of person who I want. I also want to have strong copy of the person of an ad of who I'm looking for, and I have to tell them exactly what to do next. And so at a basic framework, I have to figure out how to write the ad. Now with AI, if you've never done one before, it's a great place to start, but I will tell you that we've had a lot of our clients who have used AI or ChatGPT or Gemini to write their ad, and if it's a generic ad, you're going to get generic results. And so this is where coming into it and figuring out who exactly you want, how you want to go about doing it, and who that person is, where testing some different headlines and some copy will be really, really useful in telling them specifically what to do next. Just to give you a quick pro tip, but Justin, what do I say? What do they do next? Well, do you send a resume and a cover letter? Do you send a quick video? Do you tell them when you're looking to start, but tell them specifically what they're trying to do next? I've literally seen ads that have said, looking for a chiropractor in Massapequa, New York, send a resume. That's like the job ad. I mean, that is not going to attract high-level candidates. So step one, where do I start? You have to come up with a job ad. Number two, what I always do when I'm looking to hire employees is if I like what they wrote in their resume, the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to do a quick 15-minute either Zoom or phone call. And people say, what do I say on this? It is, hi, how's your day? That is my first question every single time. And the answer I'm looking for, anything other than good, great, having a great day, it ain't gonna work. I do not want to hire Eeyore. And if someone on their first job application on a phone call, they're like, bad weather, my back's hurting, my boss is an asshole, how do you think they're gonna treat you? So if the first 15-minute call, they're not pleasant, they're not interesting, they're not engaged, they don't have a question to ask you, it's like, I'm done. So step zero, you write your job ad. Step one is a first 15-minute phone call. Step two is a more formal interview. Now, a year and a half ago, I would tell you you have to figure out the right questions to ask and hear the responses you want. But if you've never done this before, the good news is you have AI right now, and whatever AI tells you, I'm interviewing for this position, here's the things that I want them to be able to do. Can you give me a list of questions to ask them and give me a set of answers that I want? That'll be a lot better than nothing. And so if you've never done this before, use AI to your advantage and literally just prompt it with what I just said there. So, hey, here's the job that I'm looking for. Here's the role and responsibilities. Can you give me a list of questions and a list of answers that I should be looking for? That's the next thing. Within that process, the thing I also like to do is to send them a questionnaire asking them what's important to them from a job perspective, like work-life balance, retirement, whatever they want to say. And I also want to ask them a range of pay of what they're looking for. I like them to tell me because there are some times where you have a specific job and a role of what we're looking to pay. And there are some times when people are just way out of bounds with it, above what I would be willing to pay. I can tell you, I just hired from a billing department standpoint, and I got 50 applications locally for it. And the range of pay was legitimately, some people were $20 an hour and some people were $70 an hour. It was a massive range. And so I had to look at it and say, what is normal for this position? And I was able to find that. And quite frankly, it was nowhere near the $60 or $70 range. And I got really good candidates that were much more reasonable that we could hire. And so we did that. But I want to know where they're looking because I also don't want to waste their time if they're at a pay range that I don't want to do. And then from there, I would love to do the last step is a working interview. So whatever they are, if they're a chiro or whether they're a billing person or they're a marketer, I want to work with them before I work with them. And so I'm always going to think of a working interview task, assignment, and I want to spend some time with them going through it because I want to see to the best of my ability before they show up in my office and before I'm paying them and before they accept a job. I want to make sure to the best of my ability within the confines of the interview that they can do what I want, that they can handle pressure, that I want to work with them. And so if you go through it, you got to write a job ad, you got to have a 15-minute phone call, you got to have a formal interview and then a working interview. And that is a general hiring process. In my CEO group, which is our highest level group, we have people coming in and it's CEO group. They don't just want to build a nice business for themselves. They want to become the CEO of their company, and it requires them to have people and to make decisions, to hire. Like they're trying to grow a bigger business. What I've realized in that group is many of them have the courage to hire. But we now have to have the second part of this conversation, because you also have to have the courage to say, this isn't working anymore. And it doesn't mean you've done anything wrong, and it doesn't mean that you've quit. It means that if you're going to go in and hire people, you have to understand that it also isn't always going to work. It is like going to I played baseball and football. There's no world in which every single baseball game I play, we're going to win. There's no world in which the best baseball players in the Hall of Fame hit 300, meaning that 3 out of 10 times they did what they're supposed to do. They failed 7 times. If you think that you're going to hire people and it's going to work every single time, then you've got a bad thing coming for you. The problem that I've seen now in my CEO groups with these people is that not that they won't do the first thing, the hire, it's that they won't make the tough decision to cut ties. And the reframe that I've heard always with cutting ties with people is that you are doing them a disservice to keep them any longer than they should be there, because you're not giving them the opportunity to go be successful somewhere else, because we've determined that they're not going to be successful with you. And whether that's your fault as a leader or it's their fault as the employee, it doesn't matter. It's your job to call it tight and to make the tough decision that, hey, this isn't working out anymore. And so we want to hire people, and we want to hire them fast, but oftentimes we just fire them way too slow. Actually, I'll read you something. My friend is at a big time scaling event right now. My friend Kevin, who's one of our coaches in the program, and he sent me a recap of the first day of this event. And he said, so the speaker at this event was a guy named Robert Gay, who is the founder of Bain Capital, which I don't know what Bain Capital is, but I'm sure they're fancy. The biggest mistake I see business owners make is going too long with the wrong team. The biggest mistake I see business owners make is going too long with the wrong team. If that guy at Bain Capital, which is probably a multi-billion-dollar fund of whatever the hell they do, if that means that for them, that means that for us as well. The biggest mistake that I see chiros and PT business owners make is that they go too long with the wrong team. And then there's so much shame involved in, like, I didn't do the right thing with this person, and like I didn't lead them correctly, and I'm not showing up the way I'm supposed to, and I haven't given them the systems, and maybe it's me. You're right, it is you. That's a separate conversation from doing it for too long. Because at some point, like, we just can't do it with the wrong people. And whoever's fault it is, it's irrelevant. It's a separate conversation. And so we talked all the way about, like, the fear of hiring someone, but there's actually a bigger fear, and the biggest problem is that we have a fear of letting them go. And that's where you can go out of business. Because if you keep the wrong people too long, financially, you're going to be in a bad spot. What we always tell people are like, how do I think about hiring someone? It's like, we've got 3 months to make this work. Now, I'm talking to a camera, so there's hopefully a lot of people watching this that are in very different situations. So that's not a hard and fast rule, but that's the way I think about it. There are people that we brought onto our team that within 90 days, we knew this wasn't going to be a good fit, and we had to let them go. But it's the best thing for them as well, because if we know they're not going to be successful with us, I would rather them now they might not feel this way, but it's better for them to let them go and do something else. Because they've got the rest of their life to lead too. And if it's not going to work with us, whether it's the culture value, core value, or execution fit, how am I helping them by keeping them on a team that I know they have no future with? And so you have to think the same way. Now, again, it's not that easy. I get it, but it have to think that way. And we've done great with people. I've done great with hiring staff. We've hired probably 30 staff, and I think in my life, in my companies total between the two, we've fired 4 people. That's an amazing ratio, unbelievable. We went 7-8 years without having to let anyone go. But that's even us as doing it as well as anyone's done it. We still had to have 4 people go. And it's the way it's part of running the business. It's part of running the business. So if you're struggling out there that you have to fire someone, or you're not sure how to do it, or you don't know how to have that conversation, let me give you a couple quick tips that work across the board. Unfortunately, we want to be very short. We want to be direct. We want to the point. And what we don't want to do is give crazy long explanations, even though it goes against the instinct, because you want to tell them why you're doing it. You have to check your state laws, rules, and regulations. I am not a lawyer, but the best thing that we can do is make it very quick and to the point and respectful, which is we've decided that today is your last day. We appreciate everything that you've done for our company, but we are looking to go in a different direction. And you're like, okay, what else do I say? It's like, that's kind of it. I just saw an interview with one of the Sharks, Barbara Corcoran, and they asked her specifically about when she fired people. They said, what's the biggest mistake you made? And she said, the biggest mistake I made is early on, I would give people an explanation, a big, long explanation, and then oftentimes they would use that against me, or it would get very contentious, or it would get back, and it just became a nightmare. And so she said the same thing that I've been taught as well, which is very direct, to the point, and just give them a very respectful answer, and like you want to make sure that it's done. The last pro tip that I will give you is make sure that you have arrived at the decision before you walk in. Because I have seen this where many people say, I'm going to fire this person today, I have to let them go. And then afterwards, when I recap with the person on how it went, they say, oh, they were crying and they begged for it and they're still working here now. So you're not making the decision when you do it, the decision has already been made. And so if you remember one thing about when you sometimes have to let people go, the decision is made and it is final when you walk into that conversation. So if you are out there and a business owner who is worried about hiring and then also scared as hell to have to fire someone, just understand that you and everyone else that has gone through this, it is totally normal. And it is the price of the game that we often have to play. I think that the biggest thing to recognize is it is going to be painful sometimes to hire someone for the first time, and it is more painful to have to let someone go. But what I think, to sum everything up and look at it, is as a business owner, let me look at you straight in the camera and say, it is always your fault. If you bring someone on and they're not performing, it is your fault that you hired them. If you bring someone on and you think you haven't trained them well and haven't given them the process and systems, you're unorganized, it's your fault. Independent of that, there are going to be times where you have to make the hard decision. And this is why the upside for you as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, is so high, is because the ones who have to deal with the most risk and have the most pressure are also the ones that have the highest upside. And with that, there comes a very, very great downside. So again, to wrap up, if you are someone who is worried, concerned, scared about hiring the wrong person or not getting it right and letting the people down that you hire, I promise you it's normal. Do it anyway.